Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is the 31st of March 2022. It is the last Friday of the month. It is the prodigious, the prominent professor at Proclamation News and Gavins. Come back, flux with the flow and flux with the show. Thank you all. It's back with a brand new edition. Thank you so much for coming through Proclamation News and Gavins. Share my live, please. Share my live. Comment. Make comment. Let me know you're here. I'll give you a shout out over the radio. We're on YouTube, Proclamation News and Gavins. I'm live on TikTok. I'm live on YouTube. I'm live on podcasts, Spotify, Castbox, Google Cast, you name it. Proclamation News and Gavins claims it. Anyway, before we enter the UK roads, think safety, think first. Do not enter the vehicle under sleep deprivation, under influence of alcohol or narcotics. Check your engine oil, your water coolant tank, make sure they're topped up to maximum level. Check your PSI limits. Make sure your PSI limits on the side of the tread of your tyres. Check your treads on your tyres. Make sure your tyres are not bowled. Make sure you and passengers have seatbelts on and babies have seatbelts adjacent to the car seat. Check for further road safety signs. Check for further police actions. Check for roadworks, making sure road workers are not leering from behind the house fence and driving vigilantly around roadworks. Check your centre mirror, wing mirror before turning, acting into a safe, sufficient directional choice. Make sure you're insured, your car's taxed, your driving licence, just simple things really. Anyway, before we enter the UK roads, let's go, let's look. Why do I say this all the time? I'll repeat myself. Silly incidents happening day in, day out on the UK roads. It's horrific. Anyway, our nearest incident. Oh, we have one in Witham on the A12 and Colchester. Here we go. In my constituency, there's a crash. Traffic coping well on Queen Elizabeth Way at B1025 Mersey Road. Traffic is coping well. 6:30 this morning. Witham. Crash. Slow traffic travel time due to crash on the B1018 Collingwood Road, both ways around the avenue. Travel time is 10 minutes, affecting all local roads approaching Witham. Incident in Harlow. 31st March, traffic congestion on A414. Canes Lane, both ways between M11 Junction 7 Harlow. Congestion to Bovingdon and Bobbingworth. Approaching from Chipping-Ongar. Also slow approaching the M11 from Harlow. Travel time is 25 minutes. Approaching the motorway from both sides. 6:15 a.m. We're in Essex. I am near Colchester, my friend. Lovely to meet you. Lovely to see you. Thank you for coming through. I'm doing a radio shows live on YouTube, live on Castbox, live on Spotify. You can follow us on YouTube. It's Proclamation News and Gavins. You can Google it, have a little look if you want to come through. Good morning there. How are you, Julie? Southeast of London, M25. Queuing traffic due to early crash. 2 cars involved in M25 clockwise between Junction 4, Orpington at Junction 5 M26. Cameras. Slow traffic has been released after a very brief hold whilst the vehicles were moved from Central Reservation to safety. All lanes have been closed. 6:20 a.m. Braintree. Oh, give us a follow, buddy. Good morning. Julie, how are we? Anyway, southwest of London, M25 busy but moving on the M25 both ways between Junction 10 A3 Wisey Interchange and Junction 12 M3. 6:22 a.m. first reported. People probably wonder why I do this day in, day out. I do it methodically every single day because I study history and I study politics. I don't even drive, and I always give out the car instance of today, of every single day of the week, and share them on Twitter, because I'm trying to influence young offenders on the road driving inappropriately, incompetently, and incomprehensible. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Driving usually 9 times out of 10 under the influence of alcohol or narcotics, under sleep deprivation. It is horrific. Innocent people getting caught up in incidents all the time. Or in road congestion, late for work, late for appointment, late for hospital. There you go. All life-threatening procedures. What can happen on road? We can have road incidents, road works, congestion, road closure, lane closed, and weather incidents. My goodness. M11, one lane is closed, long delays and queuing traffic for 8 miles due to crash. A lorry and a car involved in M11 southbound after junction 11. A505, Dunstable Road, Dunstable South, Luton, congestion to junction 12. Flitwick and A505 through Dunstable at A5183 through Mark something, I can't see the best. But anyway, gents, moving on. Essex weather before we move on. Essex weather. I know not everyone's in Essex listening, but I've got my Essex Live up as well at the moment. Essex weather, we've got sun, rain, and cloud. All expected in today's forecast. We had snow forecast. I think we had a bit of sleet yesterday, I believe. I didn't see much of it, but I heard that there was sleet in my area. It's going to be an unsettled day across Essex, with sun, rain and cloud all forecast in the country over the course of the day. A very chilly start will be felt, with temperatures dropping almost to freezing both in the morning and again overnight. It's also going to be windy for many, with winds gusting up to 40 miles an hour in Chelmsford. This is going to make it feel even colder, with temperatures feeling up to 5 degrees cooler than they actually are. It's freezing in Birmingham, my friend Julia said. Freezing in Birmingham, there you go. But a ray of sunshine, a couple of hours of clear skies and sun are predicted for the evening between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. It means we can make the most of the longer days, as sunset won't be until 7:30 and 8 p.m. We've put together a list of compiling the weather forecast for each part of Essex based on information from the leading weather predictors. Scroll down to see what the weather's going to be like in your area of Essex today. Cold start with temperatures of 2 Celsius, feeling like -3. A couple of hours of sun before chance of rain all day until 6 p.m. Temperatures will reach a highs of 6 Celsius at 12 p.m. In Brentwood today, we have also cold in the morning with temperatures of 1 Celsius, feeling like -4. Chance of rain during the middle of the day, windy highs of 5 Celsius. Braintree, 1 Celsius with 5 Celsius in the middle of the day, sunny intervals with light cloud, windy. Chelmsford will be cold this morning before brightening for a couple of hours. Occasional showers and sunny intervals during the afternoon. Winds gusting up to 40 miles per hour. In my constituency in Colchester, it's going to be cold. Highs reaching 5 Celsius after feeling lows of 2 Celsius in the morning. Strong chance of rain at midday. The showers and sunny intervals predicted for the rest of the day. I'm not going to go through all the areas in Essex because we're going to move on, and I need to post the car instance on my Twitter. So I've got a lot of car instance followers on my Twitter page. Bear with me 2 seconds, ladies and gents. Just going to put LBC on for a short moment while I share my car instance. Bear with me. Proclamation News and Gatherings. If you do actually Google Proclamation News and Gatherings, you will find us here, there, and everywhere. Being busy as I can be. That's all I know. Busy as I can be. I've got a chance to build up Proclamation News and Gatherings right now to get more and more of a following. I've seen how all the other presenters do it, so I know the knack of gaining followers. I know the knack of building my YouTube channel. -1 in Scotland. Blimey. Thank you very much there, Bartilicious. Bartilicious, you're more than welcome to follow us on my YouTube.
Choosing to invest in the UK.
Thank you very much.
For a number of reasons, because we are leading the world in our net zero revolution. They want to invest in the new clean energies of the future and in clean infrastructure to be part of the success that the UK is leading, and also because they want to see their investments grow, and they're choosing the UK. And one
it's last Friday of the month.
Great stable financial system.
Last Friday of the month, guys.
The law that we have here, to the challenge we see in Ukraine is one that they know will mean their investors' money, many of which is pension fund money, will be secure. So really exciting. We're going to be working with them, and I think looking for more investments to help them bring their money to invest in the UK. Because what we see in businesses that take inward investment is that they grow faster, they have high productivity, and indeed the wages can be up to 20% higher. So we are very keen to encourage more who want to come and work alongside us with the Prime Minister's vision of that 10-point plan he set out 2 years ago to delivering net zero for our country and indeed to help the planet achieve the challenge.
Is this a Brexit bonus, Secretary of State?
Well, it is the ability to bring in with investment, and our own choices is a freedom that we now have. And the Prime Minister set up the Office of Investment, which is led by Lord Grimstone 2 years ago, to help us to really drive this forward and encourage, international capital to come and invest in the UK, in our fantastic businesses, our incredible people. We have some of the best skills and talented people in the world here. We're seeing the number of unicorns, these businesses that have a £1 billion value, growing at an incredible pace. The UK does have a unique.
Was it more than Israel and Germany and France put together? I think I heard the Prime Minister say.
I think that's what the Prime Minister said yesterday. That's what the Prime Minister said yesterday. The numbers are growing at such pace because this is such a great place in the UK to develop a business and to find amazing skilled people to come and help grow this business. So we're very excited to see and very pleased that Australian investors are looking to do that, and we'll be continuing the work I'm doing at international trade, both alongside free trade agreements and helping our existing businesses to export, is to bring more investment in to make sure that we can grow our businesses at the pace they need to do that.
While I have the benefit of you on the line, some
I
other
was going to pause that there, Craig.
In your constituency as well, millions of people are going to be hit with the triple blow, right?
Just want to pause that there. I mean, what do you think of this war with Ukraine and Russia? Russia are now, their own soldiers are blowing up their own aircrafts. I've read that this morning. I think they've had enough because they're not getting the support, are they? Economically, not getting the support for their country to keep the war going, to keep it financed. Their own soldiers are retreating and turning against their own aircraft, shooting their own aircraft down. It was been said today. I don't know if it was an accident or I'm reading between the lines or their propaganda is getting mixed up or what. I don't know, but that's how I read it this morning. Oh my goodness. Their own soldiers are turning against their own aircrafts. What do you make of that then, Julie? What do you make of that? And also, one more thing I'd like to address. What do you make of the national insurance going up? I knew that was going to happen anyway, to be fair, to finance the weaponry that's going over to Ukraine. Do you think the working class are getting manipulated, aren't they, to support Ukraine? But do you think the working class are going to be getting cheesed off with the fact that national insurance is going up to help others when they don't help their own self? I believe so. I believe so. But anyway, who am I to judge? Because it's crazy, isn't it? It's a crazy world we live in at the moment.
National insurance, council tax.
Oh, he said it as well.
Days, we're going into April, inflation soaring. What is your advice? How do people deal with the Secretary of State?
He just said it.
So we are in a really difficult time, and we are all having to. The Chancellor obviously has set out a number of ways to support, £9.1 billion energy package, obviously a price cut ever in taxes on fuel, which he set out last week.
Would say you're leaving the most vulnerable behind, Secretary of State.
So I think looking at the changes that were brought in,
have a coffee.
Change the take relief has added £1,000 to the most vulnerables. finances, which is great news, but we will have to continue to work alongside, and I know the Chancellor is incredibly excited on this, as we want to do things like stabilise our energy systems. Of course, one of the big drivers of inflation at the moment is this energy spike caused by the disruptions, both indeed from COVID and the close down of a lot of production over the last 2 years, and now, of course, this huge disruption because of Putin's illegal war in Ukraine.
Might more help be forthcoming for those at the very lower end of the pay scale, Secretary of State?
So, as I said, Nick, the Chancellor's already set out this change in the taper relief for universal credit, which was added to £1,000, and also there is for those who needed a £1 billion fund, household fund, which those in urgent need can go through their councils to access support, and we will continue to work.
Household fund, very important.
Closely, as all my colleagues and I do.
Anyone struggling financially, household funds, you want to get it now before, it's better to get in quick before you lose out, because there's only so much fund. It started the start of this month, actually, the start of March. I think it ends at the end of April, so you want to get in there quick before it runs out. That's why I want to let you know that. Always, as a new tax year starts, you need to quickly jump on board and get your household fund ASAP. Anyway, ladies and gents, moving on with criminology. We have criminology. These are my sort of worst crimes. I hate thieves. I hate racketeering. I hate anything criminal to do with stealing. Police descended on Malden High Street after armed robbers stole watches worth 70k. Speak to you later, Drew. You take care. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. A number of 999 calls were made in relation to an incident at the High Street store. We live in a world of metropolitan lunatic asylums have all been escaped. Police rushed to the scene of armed robbers in Essex. Officers received a number of calls regarding the incident. Mitchell Jewellers on Malden High Street was burgled by two men. Police received reports that the incident was taking place just after 10:15 today. A police helicopter was seen in the area. No injuries have been reported, according to a police spokesperson. Before we move on, I just want to say and advise you for today. I mean, I've been in some really, really dark places. You know, I suffered alcoholism, and growing up, I suffered alcoholism. I was in the wrong, in the wrong circle of friends. You know, alcohol and narcotics. I'm not going to sugarcoat my life being this absolute purity of man. I'm, living by the given word of the Bible, because that's how I've been brought up, and I did have a fallback in life, and I did get in that circle of friends where I did drink, and I did get involved in narcotics, but I never ever stole a thing from out of shop. And I've been on my backside where I had no money. I was craving an alcoholic beverage. Now, I was never an alcoholic, but I was a binge drinker. But I'll just let you know, I never ever stole something. I hate it. I hate thieves, worst criminals known to man. A police helicopter was seen in the area. No injuries have been reported, according to a police spokesperson. Officers were at the scene with minutes. According to a spokesperson for Essex Police, the spokesperson said, "We have received a number of calls regarding an incident on Malden High Street. Shortly after 10:15, it was reported that a burglary was taking place at a shop. Officers were at the scene in minutes. Two men wearing a dark clothing and dark motorcycle helmets pulled outside Mitchell's Jewellery in Malden High Street. Thankfully, there were no reports of any injuries. Police have confirmed 3 watches were taken, valued around 70,000. The suspects fled the scene and are yet to be traced." So they've got away with 3 watches worth £70,000. There you go. Shocking. So if anyone has heard any of these watches being sold on marketplace on Facebook or eBay or Gumtree, call Essex Police. Sorry about that. Laura Coensberg signing off after 7 dizzying years. Who likes Laura Coensberg? My goodness, I had a bit of a fitting cough there. This won't be the last article I write, but be the last one in my job as a BBC's political editor before I move on. I've been trying to piece together some of my seismic events that haven't even taken place: the Brexit referendum, the pandemic, Jeremy Corbyn's stormy leadership of the Labour Party, three different prime ministers. It was an extraordinary period, and to help make sense of some of it, I've been comparing notes with five politicians and whom were, in one way or another, central to the political battles that went on. If you think that the people of this country are going to vote to hurt their wallets, you've got another thing coming. It's never happened in 100 years, and it's never going to happen now. It was 2016, and I've been the BBC political editor for nearly a year. I called one of the campaign chiefs at Remain headquarters to see how things were going. But rather than chatting about their plans for the crucial last few days, they launched into a tirade against their opponents. They were bellowing loudly, furiously, perhaps because they had started to send the votes slapping away from them. Tempers flare in politics. People care a lot about winning. They work all hours and get tired and cross. That wasn't changed in 7 years. Normally, the next day is forgotten. But that angry one sided conversation stuck in my mind. A highly successful political operative just would not and could not believe that the British public might defy convention and vote against what the most economic experts agreed, even that it was in their own and the country's financial interest. Warnings of economic chaos had worked to secure David Cameron's a majority in the 2015 election, although don't forget Labour's historic collapse in Scotland do its bit to send him to number 10 too. But the referendum was different. It posed questions about identity, about the UK's place in the world. And the results showed conventional wisdom was for fools. It hadn't bargained on the Eurosceptics, hunting out new voters and using new ways to infuse them. Nigel Farage, the former UKIP leader who had campaigned so noisily to have the vote, looks back at how the Eurosceptic movement defied the odds and broke the establishment rules. I was what I was, and I was outside the norm completely, Nigel Farage says. He describes the referendum as insurgency. I met lots of people who told me. I never voted in my life, but expressed themselves in the EU vote, he recalls. In fact, nearly 3 million more people voted in the referendum than voted in the previous general election. Farage's campaign had always pitched him as something different, a politician proud of not fitting in. I was what I was, and was outside the norm completely, he says. Of course, courting controversy for political effect isn't new. Farage describes how he went about it. I had a deliberate technique, I'd say. Right, I'm going to go and say at the press conference, I know exactly what the reaction is going to be. There'll be howls of indignation. There'll be demands that I apologise. And what I'll do tomorrow is double down. He joked to me that Boris Johnson has partially stolen his technique. That was being willing to say publicly what before 2015 might not have been acceptable in the mainstream politics, to create arguments, to make political points, and to send to the public about who they are. I'm surprised Nigel Farage is as popular as he is, sitting on the fence with Tommy Robinson, because he was part of the UKIP as well. Tommy Robinson was part of the UKIP movement. As we know, Tommy Robinson, he was very Islamophobic with that incident, what happened in Luton with his supposed cousin, second cousin or whatever it was, where he got put in prison, and then he had to flee to Spain because of the controversy that he racked up. That's why I'm pretty surprised that Farage at UKIP is so popular. Cameron told ministers, campaign in what you believe in, is in the best interest of your country. Andrea Leadsom. The Brexiteers knew the odds were against them in almost every traditional sense. And remember, the official campaign vote Leave wanted nothing to do with Farage's more controversial tactics, yet they resolved that their route to victory would be to run a different kind of aggressive campaign, making statements they knew would also provoke and deliberately targeting a blend of messages at voters who may have never cast a ballot before, who had never checked out the politics in the previous decade. They tried to attract voters for whom the economy had done no favours at all. Andrea Leadsom was one of the serving Tory ministers who joined that campaign. She then made her way into the cabinet, even running to become Prime Minister when Boris Johnson's campaign blew itself. Out on the streets, talking to people, they would say, well, I don't really want to admit in the public, but yes, I'm going to vote to leave, she tells me. David Cameron's Remain campaign was more conventional than the Brexiteers. And when he did roam outside the norm and allowed members of his own team to push for leave, it was arguably a political mistake. I distinctly remember David Cameron calling ministers in and saying to all of us, what you all have to do is campaign in what you believe in. It's best interest of our country. Not in what the party is telling you to do, says Leeson. And that was an extraordinary thing for him to do. And I think it spelt doom. Prime Minister of the day suspended the normal rules allowing his team to campaign against him. A referendum in itself is an unconventional thing in the UK, but as a result indicated, convention itself had gone out the window. The referendum came after what he had also on paper seemed like a huge political upset. Farage might not relish a comparison to the former Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, and Corbyn won't be happy with that either. But they have something in common, straying deliberately from the norm. In 2015, they long served left wing had already proposed by courting new and disaffected voters and claiming the mantle of outside for herself. The chair of this campaign for former Labour leader was John McDonnell, who became the shadow chancellor. McDonnell say his comrade put a portrayal of being beyond the norm with a huge attraction. Remember, after 5 years of austerity, people had it bad enough. They weren't just questioning what was happening day to day, they were questioning the whole system. So along comes Jeremy Corbyn and says, actually, I'll tell you why the system doesn't work. Jeremy Corbyn's campaign forged a different connotation that there were 1,000 upon 1,000 of new voters who joined the party for the first time, and those on the left of the party who felt it had drifted too far and from its soul. McDonnell says the concisely decided to pursue victory in novel ways. Beyond the normal party politics out there were a whole range of social movements with the anti-war movement, the people campaigning against austerity and cuts, and we basically said, look, we can win this election if we invite those groups into a discussion around a more formal politics and getting them to vote as well. And that's what we did. And throughout his time, during his struggle to establish control over the Labour Party, he continued to delight many of his supporters and irritate many others in the Labour movement by refusing to confirm. Which brings us to the politician who turned a love for pushing convention into a ticket to number 10. Boris Johnson is a career politician, just like Corbyn and Farage, although like them, he would argue otherwise. To claim Johnson is not a member of the elites he has derided is to ignore the facts, yet as someone who has, both a communist and a politician, tried to write his own headlines, the Prime Minister has got to the top with a technique of saying, and sometimes doing what others dare not to do. His backers say it's because he's being authentic. I remember a conversation with a voter in Middlesbrough during the 2019 election who said, I like Boris. He's just like me. He's like beer. He likes women. he likes mistakes. Whatever your view on whether those are qualifications for high office, there's no doubt that Johnson's willingness to be blunt, to be prepared to offend, and yes, to break rules. He's been seen by many voters as a welcome refreshment for smooth, technocratic politicians, I've been told so often, are all the same. One senior minister still now finds Johnson apparent needs to provoke, to bluster, frustrating. It's not funny anymore. They say, but the provocator in one is the one in power. It is remotely clear the new voting connotation that Boris Johnson built on the foundation of Brexit vote will see him stay in the office for a second term he craves. Yet his hung political personality makes it hard for others to find space to breathe. David and Theresa had a basic respect for truth and civilised debate, which I don't think we have in the current incumbent, Nicola Sturgeon has said. The trend of the convention busting worries others, though Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland, is one of a tiny number of politicians who was at the top of her game at the start of this era, and who is still there. I think some of the conventions have been smashed to bits, she tells me, and I think the rules of engagement have undoubtedly changed. The First Minister, who is no fan of Boris Johnson, continues, I have deep differences, obviously, with David Cameron and Theresa May, but, I'll fleck back on dealing with them, and they had a respect for the office. I think they had a basic respect for truth and civilised debate, which I'm sorry to say I don't think we have with the current incumbent. During our conversation, Sturgeon also reflected how politicians have been challenged during this era in ways they could simply never have dreamt of. During the pandemic, their choices influenced all of us in ways hadn't for generations. Their decisions were matters of life and death. She recalls scents of the dead. Around about 6 o'clock on Friday evening, the streets were deserted, and I was passing a pub after pub. They were closing their doors and pulling their shutters down. It was incredible, just an eerie, unsettling feeling. And I think the thing that was most difficult as a leader to come to terms was that there were no decisions you could take that wouldn't have caused harm in some way. There were no decisions you could take that would just magically make everything better. Just one extraordinary point of stability throughout the whole period is that Conservatives have been in office, Matt Hancock has said. Matt Hancock, who was Health Secretary during the pandemic, reflects on his toughest moments for that time. One, he says, was the intense rowing during the second lockdown in January 2021, when cases were rising even after ministers had taken drastic action. They just kept going up. The numbers in hospital kept going up. When we hit 40,000, well, that was almost half the beds in hospital. So what was the hardest period? Because you knew there was nothing more you could do. And it didn't even turn up. It would be truly, truly awful as opposed to just awful. And the pandemic came hard on the heels of the most intense period of political change we lived through for a long time. Its turmoil, Matt Hancock tells me, it is documented on his walls. I've got on my walls a picture of 4 different cabinets that I was in. The David Cameron Connotation Cabinet, the Cameron post-2015 Majority Government Cabinet, the Theresa May Cabinet and Boris Johnson Cabinet, and there's hardly any people who are in all 4. In the end, of course, he suffered his own embarrassment exit. One of the topics that all the 5 I've been speaking about for the past few years is impact in technology change has had on politics. John McDonnell talked about how new campaign methods played a central part in crowning Jeremy Corbyn as leader. We all had these young people flood the campaign with ideas and techniques I've never even heard of. And it's all social media, he says. They knew how to target games. So we set up a group called Games for the Many. And they invented games that people could play that would lead them into a political debate and support Jeremy. Jeremy Corbyn did have a huge string on people, apart from his anti-Semitism ways. That's what I think gave up his chance of being a prime minister and his canny ways of being a vegan. Homes for Ukraine, 2,700 visas issued, government reveals. There have been 2,700 visas issued for refugees coming to UK as part of the Homes for Ukraine. Less than 10% of the 28,300 applications made in the scheme for the first 15 days. Lord Hamilton, Refugees Minister, admitted the forms took too long to fill in and said the government was trying to speed up their process. There had been criticism on the scheme since it was launched. Charities said the process is just too difficult for those fleeing Ukraine. The quickest way to help people would be for the UK to stop requiring visas for those fleeing Ukraine and would bring it in line with many countries which have done so since Chris began, said the British Red Cross. The charity said it was hard representatives at major airports and arrival hubs since 19th of March, but so far only 65 people arriving from Ukraine have been helped. Sonia Seats, chief executive of the Freedom from Torture charity, said, in a month where people across the country signed up to welcome more refugees than the government has in 10 years. These woeful numbers prove why visa-based schemes are unsuitable gateway for refugees fleeing Ukraine to reach safety here in the UK. If you're seeking asylum trying to claim refuge in a different country, it can take up to 6 weeks. You can reside in that country that you're fleeing into for 6 weeks waiting. Yes, I was. True story. Homeless refugees in the UK on top of the 2,700 homes in Ukraine for visas. Make sure you give me a follow. I'll get back to you in about 2 minutes. A further 22,800 visas from 31,200 applications have been issued under Ukraine's family scheme. In the Home Office has said they are for those with close relatives living in the UK, but even those with a visa are not always being housed. Some refugees have been reporting themselves to councils as being homeless, the local government association has said. Its chair's James Jameson said it was a big issue. So far, 57 councils have said people had presented as homeless, 44 who are part of the family scheme, and 56 from homes from Ukraine. These people get a house before yourself. Just bear that in mind. If you're on a housing register and these refugees are coming over, they'll probably be housed before you. The lights are me and you. So unlucky if you're a British citizen trying to claim housing. You've got no hope and no chance. Another 64 have entered through other routes, possibly travelling to Ireland and then entering the UK from there, he added. Homes from Ukraine launched on the 14th of March. It aims to allow individuals, charities, community groups and other organisations to sponsor named refugees, housing them in their homes or buildings. I know we've got, just having general knowledge of humanitarian. They've got a war crisis in Ukraine. All we've got to do is have, give a bit of compassion, give our condolences. They just lost their home, lost their livelihood. They're going to get housed before the likes of me and you. It's just the way the world, it's just the way the cookie crumbles. If you've got no compassion for these people, what have you got? They just lost. Imagine if that was us and we had to flee our home to go and live in a refugee camp in, say, Turkey, which we have seen that, with Syrians living over there as refugee camps, they're sleeping outside on tennis courts. That could be us in years to come. So just bear that in mind. So hopefully someone does put a roof over our head, but probably not. There's probably a chance of that happening for us if we fled to France or we fled to Spain, which have been bombed out of house and home. The fridge freezer all blown up, no food to eat. Can you please put us in a house? No, but you can sleep in a tent on a tennis court. There you go. There's your house. But in England, back home in Italy, we've been blown up. We've got no home. We've got no house. We've got no fridge freezer. We've got no bed to sleep in. Come to England. We'll give you a free home. We'll give you a mobility car, and then we'll get you out to work. They're not going to go, nine times out of 10, no, they ain't going to go to work. They're just going to live off They're going to live off the refuge, aren't they? They're going to live off the finances supported them, and they'll probably never get a job. Nah, some probably do, but I'm just saying that's what happens. We're supporting others before we support ourselves, and those that won't probably support us if it happened on the shoes on the other foot. That's the worrying thing. Those who do not personally know someone fleeing Ukraine have been advised to contact groups who are starting to make connections between individuals to match them to a refuge. The UK requires the refugees to have visa before they enter, unlike other European countries, which have waited for checks to speed things up. Those who are granted a visa under the scheme will be eligible to work and can access state benefits and public services for 3 years. Refugees with a valid Ukrainian international passport can apply online, but with those without one have to go to a visa application centre. Lord Hamilton said approximately 10% of the applications so far are having to go to the centres. Prime Minister Boris Johnson defended the government's overwhelmingly generous record of refugees, saying 1,000 visas were being processed a day, and 10 MPs there is no upper limit to the number that we can make. It came after Lib Dem leader Ed Davies said paperwork is being put ahead of people. With one elderly couple on the Polish border with the Ukrainian being told it was just too complicated to come to the UK. Last but not least, we're going to look on the criminology. This is horrific news, absolutely horrific news. I looked at the headline earlier. It's absolutely abysmal, absolutely shocking, traumatizing for a mother, traumatizing for a auntie, uncle, nan, grandma, granddad. It's shocking, absolutely shocking. Controlling and violent Ilford man murdered ex-partner toddler just weeks after meeting on a dating app. So you women going meeting random men on a dating app, you don't know his past, you haven't checked up the Clare's Law. Even you men meeting women, they could be psychopath as well, They could be a psychopath, they could have suffer from narcotics, be psychotic. And you're going on a date with these people. You haven't checked their background. Syed Mohammed Kamran Hadler was abusive to the toddler and her mum, the court has heard. The toddler's like months old, possibly 2. An Essex man has been convicted of the murder of a toddler just weeks after meeting her mum on a dating app. Syed Mohammed Cameron Haider, 40 of Collington Road, Ilford. He's inflicted fatal injuries to the 16-month-old child at his home address on the afternoon of August 28, 2019, the court said. Haider was left to care for the toddler, Nusaba bint Umar, while her mother went to an appointment. While she was out, she received a call from Haider, who said Nusaba had hurt herself. Her mother returned home and found Nusaba with a serious injury to her head and swelling. She tried to call an ambulance, but Haider refused, suggesting that she should instead collect a baby pen to put Nusaba in rather than walking around. However, a taxi called Nusaba's mother went with her to the East London hospital where she was admitted and stayed overnight. She was diagnosed the following day. Nusaba's mother tried in vain to arrange alternative accommodation for her. On September the 13th, all 3 were at home with the mother heard Nusaba crying upstairs. She heard the sound of a slap after Haider had told Nusaba to shush, and he then brought her downstairs. Nusaba's mother cared for her and grew increasingly concerned for her welfare. She left the property and went to the bus stop where she called an ambulance. The London ambulance service attending Nusaba was rushed to hospital. She was treated before being transferred to a specialist hospital in central London. Haider was arrested on suspicion of GBH and was taken into custody. He was then released on bail and later released under investigation. Nusaba remained critically ill until she died in hospital at 6 p.m. on September 17th. Post-mortem examination held days later gave Cause of death as a traumatic head injury. This is suspected to have been inflicted by Hader on September the 13th. Hader was charged by postal requisition in September 2020 following extensive medical inquiries. He appeared in Barkingside Magistrates Court in December 2020, where he was remanded in custody. The court heard Nusaba's mother had been in a relationship with Hader, which began in August 2019, and they met on a dating website. Nusaba and her mother moved into Hader's address in Collington Road with the promise of financial reward for helping him rear puppies. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting, absorbing information. I cannot go on to read that anymore. Anyway, it's Proclamation News and Garants. Thank you all for coming through. If you do come in and listen to Proclamation News and Garants on YouTube, Castbox, Spotify, Podbean, Google Cast, make sure you give us a follow. If you could choose anyone